We're ready to go, I think.
Okay.
It was a process. We're starting the year 2023 off.
Yes.
We're going to switch it around a little bit, Jackie, because we're going to do a year in review. And you're going to ask me whatever you want to about my first year as a full-time caregiver.
Yes.
Let me tell you a little bit about Jackie. We met several years ago. She wrote this book, Where is Wilma? It's about her mother-in-law, and Jackie was a caregiver for her, and so I had her on as a guest, and guess what? We became friends. Excuse me. Excuse me, everybody. And sisters in Christ, and
Yes.
so I love her dearly, and so I thought, I want to have her be the one. Now, I could get on here and do this all by myself, but that's not as fun to do a year in review. I would rather have fellowship and a conversation about being a caregiver. So we had lunch. Mama joined us. She gave us a sweet little prayer. So she's going to be making noise, people. Just be ready for that. She knows we're in here doing something, but she doesn't understand that we're recording. But even if she did, I don't think she would really care.
No.
Yeah, she would just have to be involved. So who knows what'll happen. So I just thank you, Jackie, for coming. For those of you who, this is a thin but powerful testament, especially in your relationship with Christ and how you needed Him desperately to walk you through this journey with your mother-in-law. So it's on Amazon. I encourage you to get it. And we're going to get started here, a year in review, in hopes that we will have all of our technical things already lined out. There was a lot going on here. We're doing video, and we're just doing audio, and there's lights and cats in action.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me. As always, we have a good lunch. That was very good. But I just wanted to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Since you're into your first year, being home, not working, not going out like you used to, just want to know how you feel about that and how did that go. But to get started, I want you to take us back a little bit about how this is not your first go-round.
Right. Okay. So for my first go-round, both my parents were diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia at the same time. Now, when they started it, they may have started their journey, and we were all not knowing what was going on several years prior. Mm. I can identify trips with my dad. Now, my dad had dementia Lewy body. It is a more aggressive form of the disease, really affecting the motor skills. So it was hard for me to understand how it was affecting him because he was a tennis player. So he could get around the court still. Physically, he was doing well. But we would go on these trips together, and I just chalked it up to old age. That's what you do, cognitive memory issues. So when we would take trips, I'd have to make sure I stayed close by, getting us back and forth to the room or to the bus, our little tour bus. And he did seem anxious. So it wasn't until we took a family trip to go visit my brother in Hawaii. My mother, this was in 2017 that we took the trip. Prior to 2016, we went to Hawaii to visit my brother. And that's when I realized, wow, so my parents are going through something. Now, they weren't married, and so my dad was living in Illinois at the time. But that trip almost wore me out. So it was a lot of work, keeping up with them. So in 2017, I moved my dad here closer. I thought he was just dealing with Parkinson's. That's what he was diagnosed with. But then dementia Lewy body has Parkinson-like symptoms. I already knew because I was living with my mother, so I already knew that she was struggling. She was retired, but she was struggling with decision-making, especially the checkbook, etc. knowing how to get places.
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Mm-hmm.
concerned, and I told a lot of people that I thought it was just intense grief because she had lost her sister and they were so close. So the focus was on Dad, and his dementia really accelerated in ways. When I first got him here, within the year I was having caregivers come for about 4 hours.
Well, what was the first thing what was the big drastic change that you saw and you really knew, okay, this is serious?
Probably, okay, so when he was here, he was walking the dog, it was fine, everything, he seemed very alert. It's when I would go check on him at lunch, and I realized he wasn't making a sandwich. Ultimately, he didn't know how. But I didn't know that at the time. I thought he was being lazy because I'd have everything there for him. He loved turkey sandwiches, but I'd go and I'd see he hadn't cut the tomato and he hadn't put the lettuce on there and probably hadn't put the mayonnaise, and he loves mayonnaise. He would just eat the turkey.
Mm.
So I connected with a few friends who had experience, and I had already, not knowing the extent of the disease, but just thinking again, we were dealing with Parkinson. I'd already put him in the system at a local senior care, not facility, but a caregiving, home care. So once I started connecting with her, she saw the signs, and so we had Dad diagnosed. We took him to a doctor. And so she was able to kind of already go, well, you're asking him to make himself a sandwich and he doesn't know how.
Yeah.
There's too many decisions.
Yeah.
And I knew something was up because I couldn't get him to understand or work the air conditioning unit. I would even, at the apartment complex, which was just right up from the house, so I could get there quickly and swing by on the way to work and back work. But I even put a diagram up, but he just could not figure it out.
Mm.
But he had the financial means, and we got. I just asked him. I said, "Dad, do you want somebody to come at lunchtime and help you out with lunch and stuff?" And he was like, "Yes." So he was scared. So we started out with 4 hours a day during the week. For somebody to come and be with him, walk him with the dog, etc., clean if they needed to, and then it began to be 8 hours, and then it was obvious it had to be 24/7.
24 hours.
So I didn't have to. I had the worry and the anxiety, but I didn't have to physically care for him. My brother did come home from Hawaii and spend 8 months before his passing to be his nighttime caregiver. So I did have help in that way. Even though we would have hired somebody, it was nice to have my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a real important connection for our entire family. So Dad was first. He passed away in 2019.
Mm-hmm. So you had your mom. So your mom was with you, excuse me. So when did you notice the change with your mom?
Well, prior to moving Dad here, I noticed changes in her. And again, not understanding dementia, Alzheimer's, are absolutely
Okay, let me ask you this, though. Was she already diagnosed with anything?
No, they got diagnosed. I just hit up the doctor at the same time with both of them.
Okay.
So they were both diagnosed officially in 2017 when Dad moved here. With her, again, this is even prior to her sister passing in 2016. She would have anxiety attacks, which she never had, about certain things, confusion.
Mm-hmm.
One thing in particular that freaked me out is she called me at work and she just was sure someone had come in the house while she was in the shower because she did not remember getting a Coca-Cola out and putting it on the table. So when she got out of the shower and came in and saw that, she freaked out. Had an anxiety attack. I rushed over and just was like, what in the world was that all about? So I thought it was a stroke. I was like, I took her to the doctor, thinking and seeing if maybe that was a stroke. Other things, well, even before that, panic attack. There was, for years prior, she was not doing the checkbook, and she was on that checkbook. Every Saturday she would balance it,
Yeah.
and she was proud about that, and never missed a bill. But I would find bills around and start looking at them, and they were past due. And on those particular Saturdays when she couldn't balance it, she would just really get anxious and angry and frustrated and scared, all that together. And I was like, God, what's going on there? You know? And then there was one other incident where she'd gone to this doctor. I mean, my gosh, we'd lived here over 40-something years. She knew where all the doctors were, the streets, and she got lost and frustrated and scared. So they were dramatic. Now, the most positive thing that happened was that she had a car wreck, not a serious one, and it wasn't her fault. Someone sideswiped her. That scared her from driving. So that helped. We got the car repaired. If she did drive after that, it was just up to my dad's apartment, or something like that. So I immediately, because I was already shopping for Dad and stuff, immediately started doing all the shopping. And so for her, I started noticing years in advance. I'm just going to throw it out and say 2014. Before the diagnosis in 2017, where there was obvious cognitive memory. And I was taking her to the doctor, and that's what they were saying. She was having cognitive memory impairment. That's not abnormal, and it doesn't mean it would lead to a dementia. And I was like, huh? What? What's dementia?
Yeah.
But it could. And so my anxiety really got elevated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now, here you are a year later. Excuse me.
Allergy.
Some reason we can't talk, but anyway.
We got allergies, girl. It is like 70 degrees outside, and it's January.
So here we are a year later. You quit your job. Now we're going to start there. What made you decide that it was time for you to leave your job?
Well, Mom and I were always close, so probably unhealthy close. That mother-daughter codependent relationship, but we were close. I had witnessed how she had cared for her parents in their last days. Now, they both died around 90, and they died of cancer. Now, I think now, looking back, my grandmother did have some dementia, but we didn't know about it. It was not a conversation. No one ever hinted around about it. But she had some weird behavior that I just chalked up to being a mean grandmother. So,
yeah.
But my relationship with Christ has always been critical for helping me navigate this fallen world that we live in and all the obstacles. And so I had already, with my father, and that's one reason I moved my father here, when I asked him in 2017, when it was obvious he was scared, and I said, Dad, what do you want to do? He said, I want to move there with you. We moved him here within a month. I didn't want him to be scared. And I knew that it was a major deal because I was moving. Now, my parents had always been cordial to each other, and in fact, we'd taken trips together. So it's not as if I was moving him to an adversarial situation, and I was moving him up the street.
Yeah.
Now, if I could have moved him into this house, that would have been helpful, folks, I can tell you that. But so seeing and experiencing God's movement from the very beginning in that most dramatic trial for me, my parents and my dad, I was very in touch, very communicative to him, and hearing him and receiving his instruction, because he's the only one that knows what is happening, the hearts and mind of all man, and what is coming down the pike. And I've always been one who's I've needed that desperately because I've been very fearful of future stuff.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic hit, I always told you this, the pandemic oddly was a blessing to me because, boy, I really leaned into God in a more personal way of study, prayer. And so I knew that I had within for at least 18 months of work, I was working from here. If I left to go, I worked for a TV station, so if I left to go do a story, I'd go do a story, but I was always coming back here to edit and do my work. So Mom got really used to that.
Yeah.
It allowed me to observe her more. That was extremely helpful. So 18 months into it, several of us at work started to, because at that time I was on the air live and on a show called The Vine, and we kind of started going back a little bit here and there, and that was fine, but I could sense a disruption. And I'd already learned through the years routine is crucial for dementia patients, and any kind of disruption.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, she's used to me being on TV live from here and working from here. Now I'm saying I'm going to go to work. Even at that time, it was only 3 days a week. It was nothing dramatic happened. I could sense that it made her more anxious, and she looked forward to when I came home. But boy, did I learn something about dementia patients. Their concept of time is absolutely different from ours.
Yes.
I would only be gone 2 hours, and she thought I was at work all day long.
Yeah.
And I was just like, so the part of me was hoping, I'd hope she'd just understand 2 hours. That's not very much. But so, and at that time, and she did not need someone here with her 8 hours a day. I say that knowing that I was pretty much here 8 hours a day working, if not 24/7, because I lived here with her. But I didn't need to hire anyone like Dad. Dad needed lots of help at that point. His confusion was more dramatic because of his Lewy body. And so going back to work at first was fine. But I knew God was reassuring me that a decision was coming. Most importantly, as he was reassuring me that he was with me. He was going to take care of details, financial details, everything else. I had seen how he had done that with my father. So I wasn't doubtful, but I just realized to honor her, I was going to be the best, I was going to be the most qualified caregiver, if not the cheapest.
What to say? Yeah.
Because there's no way I would have had to mortgage the house, who knows, finance the house, whatever it might have been to
gets
pay.
Very expensive.
It wouldn't have made sense for me to work, and then that money, because I would have had to been paying for caregiving.
Right.
It would have just wiped out my paycheck, so it made no sense.
Yeah.
And so I just knew. The first thought was, well, maybe I should just go part-time. And so I did that first, and then
because wasn't it kind of, how long had you been working?
Hang on, folks. Yes, Mama, the cat can go outside. Go ahead.
How long had you been working? How many years?
25 years at the TV station.
So see, that was a very big prayerful moment to decide to leave that job. That was a long time to be working.
You know, it was, and I'm not my career for sure. That's something I'm a child of God, and I am wherever and whoever, not whoever. I am a child of God, but I wasn't like career bound.
Right.
I wasn't like, I want to do this and this and this. I didn't find my identity in what I did. I enjoyed what I did. But if I needed to make a shift, I was not worried about losing that. I wasn't worried about losing myself. In fact, the opposite's been true. I've found more of myself since making that decision.
Because you're more spiritually led.
Yeah.
And worldly led.
And I've always been proactive.
Yeah.
And I want to be ahead. I want to be the one that makes the decision. Now, when I say that, ultimately I'm not making the decision. God is with me, guiding me to make the decision. But I always wanted, it's a faith step.
Yeah.
So if I'm feeling
definitely
that I'm being called to leave employment and care for my mom, First, because of the way he's helped me through the years financially, making sure I'm not in debt and being understanding that process and being responsible. That's always been me. My savings, I thought, okay, well, I've always just looked at it as like I can't look too far out because that's mind-blowing. I'm just going to see how the year goes.
Yeah.
And buckle down. And I'm not driving. And then, of course, gas prices went berserk. So I was like, good thing I'm not driving.
Yeah.
I wasn't eating out as much. I didn't need to worry about new clothes. There were so many things that I was able to say did not have to spend needlessly on. Not that I was a big spender. I certainly wasn't out to, boozing it up at the bars, at dance clubs. So that was never an issue. But I just had to focus and line up everything the best I could financially, make sure I had the will, the power of attorney in place, which I had already had that, but just all of these things to how I was going to deal with my own finances and pay, whatever. So there were some significant decisions to make, but the peace that I had made me realize I'm going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that it was going to be the right decision, and really because I'm focused on her, the quality of her life. I don't want her to be afraid, and it could be small things like the fact that I can't trust the people that come to my door. She would let them in.
Yeah.
And I had to get rid of the landline because there were so many sales calls. She would talk to them. And you got to remember, folks, people with dementia remember their Social Security number. They're not going to remember if you're gone to work, but they're going to remember their Social Security number.
Yeah.
So there were things that there were things that she would say.
And they don't have a clue how the world have changed.
And I could say over and over, don't answer the door to any strangers.
Yeah.
And at that moment, she's going to say, okay, but she's not going to remember the conversation or that there's a threat. That's just that's the reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, as you can see, she gets around great, loves to go in and out, and so I can keep an eye on that. Now, look, she could fall in the house, she could fall out. But as long as I'm close by,
that's what matters.
That I can react faster than, if I was at work and she was laid out for 4 hours or whatever.
So tell me, how did you feel, or when did that feeling come when you realized, wow, I'm in here now. I'm not going to work every day. I'm not going out.
Well, when they started rolling us back to work since COVID, about 18 months in, even though I wasn't required to be there full time, but just in and out, I began to feel that I was going to need to make a transition. So going back to what I alluded to before, so at first I was like, well, I'll go part-time. And so I did for several months, but that didn't matter because remember, we're talking about a situation where they have no sense of time.
No.
And my being gone for a couple hours was like all day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, that's part-time works. It probably gives me a little more peace, but it's not giving her peace. Or it's giving me a little bit more stability or keeping me out there interacting with people, being creative.
Yeah.
But that's not helping her.
She was on edge.
She was on edge. And then,
yeah.
And so I just went to my boss and said, the end of the year, which would be in 2021, I said I need to go ahead and resign and retire full-time to be her full-time caregiver. So they had a month or so, and so we were able to do that. And it's just funny because, again, Mom has no idea why I don't work anymore. Sometimes she does, because she'll say odd things like, that's so you can be here with me, or but there's no pressure. There's no emotional pressure for her because she doesn't feel guilty or feel weird. She's like, because at the very beginning I had to remind her, I don't go to work anymore. Oh, okay. Well, why?
Yeah.
Oh, I just retired, Mom. Oh, well, good. That's good for me.
Yeah.
But then there would be times that she was lucid enough and focused enough and to realize that I made the decision so I could be her full-time caregiver, because she would say something like that. So
she said that to me before when I come over. She said, "Are you coming over here to babysit me?"
Yeah.
I said, "No, I'm coming over here to see Theba."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's funny. She alert enough to make life fun for the both of us, but confused enough to make it interesting.
Yeah. And keep you on your feet.
Keep me on my feet. But I think, so it was difficult at first. Like right now are you getting yourself some ice cream?
No, be quiet.
I found an ice cream that she loves.
Uh-oh.
And so she thinks she's being sneaky, but I can hear the bowl. At the beginning, so I retired at the end of the year, so January I was just like, I had the podcast already, so I knew I wanted to continue that, and I could continue it from the home. I didn't feel the pressure to do it as much. I think I was doing it every other week, or I think at the beginning I was doing it every week because I was so excited and I had so many resources. But I realized I just chill out. You don't have to do it all the time. So I had the podcast, and I knew I wanted to continue that. And also something I did do once a month was I was a guest on the Vine as a spokesperson, as an advocate for caregiving. And so I stayed connected with my co-host, which would have been at that time Ashley and then Adam, and so I enjoyed that. So I didn't have to just stop that because I'd already gained a following of people. So once a month I'd come on, and whether or not we talked about a tool or a resource or an upcoming event for the Alzheimer's Association or our Alzheimer's Arkansas, I could talk about that. And then I just knew by the end of last year that I was going to need to give that up. It didn't feel pressured. I just thought I just need to go ahead and cut that part of my life out completely, that creative, the TV part out, so I can focus on what might God have me do, elsewhere. And so, again, knowing I was going to do the podcast, but man, the first 3 months or so was difficult. When you spend 25 years in a business that, you might go 8 hours a day, but it's a creative business that occupies your mind 24/7.
Yeah.
It was hard. So I'm going to start a website. And I did that. I don't have that website anymore, but boy, I took that creative energy and I almost killed myself building my own website, but did that. But I had to find out how to settle my mind down. And it took about 3 or 4 months just to kind of, all right, well that. And then there were just some transitions that became very positive and peaceful, and that was not having TV on. Mom and I began doing some biblical studies, and she enjoyed doing them with me. They were on the computer, so we just turned TV off. It was such noise anyway, and dementia patients aren't following what's going on. And
anyway,
she would see something on a movie and think it was the news. Or the news, she would think that was a movie. So I realized that she wasn't into that, and that was not necessary. But it helped me just quiet the noise, quiet the noise of the world. Quiet the noise that I felt like I needed to be achieving something or people-pleasing somebody else or whatever. So it took a little while, and then we got into more of a routine, because routine is critical for dementia patients. And so everything from making sure you don't schedule since you're retired, you don't have to schedule appointments at the time that seems convenient for you.
Yeah, you had a major change.
Yeah, you do it
Yeah.
you do it for them
Yeah,
when it would be good for them.
yeah, yeah. Because when you were working, see, you had to make schedules. You had to put it this time, that time. But when you got off and dealing with her, you can do it anytime you wanted to.
Right.
But like you said, do it when it's the best time for her.
Yeah.
Because some of them, early in the morning ain't good.
Girl, I learned that. I was so focused on the early mornings, and
Yes.
then not to do it late afternoon, because sundowners for many people with dementia can start at 3:00, 4:00. But people just think it's because it's dark. It's not.
No.
She gets more tired, and she wants to cocoon herself and get
You really
in her-
have to pay
yeah.
attention to them. And they'll let you know when they're at that liveliest, when they're slowing down, when they need quiet. And you have to rearrange your life and your schedule around them. And that's how you have to do that. So you have done that very well. I want to tell you, you've done that very well. But
thank you.
I was just wondering how that changed for you, because like you said, you were so creative. You were always doing this. And I remember when you started the podcast and you were doing this, and you had to just realize, okay, I'm no longer doing that anymore.
Right.
I'm getting ready to slow down, back up. Now it's just going to be me and Mom.
Yeah, because you live in a world that's consuming. We're consumers, but also people consume other people and their abilities and talents. And so that becomes normal, even if you're a codependent person, like, oh, good, that person needs me. The job needs me. People at work enjoy me, and I enjoy being with them. And so you get caught up in what you do, and it's less about who you are.
Yeah.
And who I am does not change wherever I am. I'm still a child of God who's dependent on Him to reveal His will to me every day. So it is difficult for sure, because as a child of God, I realize I need fellowship. So the podcast helps, but also I have friends come over for lunch.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't always
Yeah.
come over and do the podcast. You've come over for lunch.
Yeah.
We made a commitment to stay connected because it was obvious that God had connected us more than just the podcast. And so that's been important for me to have, not only just for me, but to have a guest come over for lunch or whatever every other week. It's for Mom, too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that she doesn't remember that they've been over here before. I mean, I know for a fact she doesn't know who you are, but when she saw your face, she remembered that she has seen you before.
Yeah.
And as long as you're in this house and you're a friend of mine, she's going to hug you. She's going to tell you
Yes.
that she loves you.
Yeah.
She's safe. And so recently I had you come over, asked if you'd come over and sit with Mom while I was at an event. And so even though that's awkward for her, especially at night, wasn't it at night? No, it was during the day.
No, it's during the day.
It was during the day. She's not used to someone sitting with her during the day. So I think that you guys had a couple of very interesting, shocking, screaming moments, because she's used to, if I'm gone to the store or whatever, she's used to being okay, just piddling around here. And then she'd
Right.
round the corner and there you were.
Yeah, me and her kept bumping into one another, and she was like,
freak out.
whoa.
Yeah.
But she didn't know I was doing it too. Whoa, because she
Yeah.
would come up on me really fast. So, yeah, it was something.
Yeah, because by the time she visited with you and then goes back to the bedroom to do her thing, she has forgotten that
She
you
has
were here.
forgotten that I was in here.
Yeah, my best friend comes every Tuesday night, and if Mom doesn't see the car, she will forget that she's here. She goes, "Oh, well, hi." So, or I'll hear her in the other room, "Theba, what you do?" And I'm in here with Bethy. Oh, yeah, okay.
So where are you right now? How are y'all doing right now?
Well, once I settled down some from just feeling a little restless, trying to figure out what to do with all this nervous, creative energy, we got into more of a routine, and I saw how critical that was for her, her peace of mind, her comfort. So we try to, that routine doesn't change in the morning. I certainly don't have appointments in the morning anymore. This routine is more important. If we have a doctor's appointment, it's going to be around 10:30, 11, or 11:30.
Mm-hmm.
Because the showers are such an issue, she is used to, it's not abnormal for me to say, Mama, we're going to lunch today, either together to have Girls' Day, I call it Girls' Day, and or we're going to meet some people that she knows for lunch. So we got to take a shower. It's not as much of a battle because ultimately she enjoys getting out, even though it's going to be just for like an hour and a half. So we're I'm in my second year as being her full-time caregiver. I have resolved a lot of that stuff, need to feel needed, etc. Dove in first, as you well know, because we visited about it, just studying God's Word and doing some audio books that you can get, which I like because Mom can hear those and we can hear them together. We're doing a book right now on heaven. It's really awesome. The guy's voice is real pleasant. Mm. And she loves listening, even though she's not really receiving the information. It's a beautiful book about heaven, so she just loves the sound of that. And so I think one of the things I was grateful for when the year started out, there was definitely a difference. So I knew some routines that would work, and I'm doing those. Mm-hmm. I know that could change at any time. There's been no major shifts for her. So some of her questions or confusion about her sister, or if I'm her sister, sometimes that's the same. Most of the time I'm her daughter and she's my mother, and that's fine. So no massive shifts in her cognitive situation. So I can manage that. I can handle that. In fact, she's so comfortable, I just really forget sometimes that she's got dementia until she gets up to go feed the birds and has to go to the bathroom and then forgets she was feeding the birds. And so then I'm like, oh, yeah, she's got dementia. Or she asks me, is your brother married? For like the 10th, 100th time. And so I'm like, oh, yeah, she's got dementia. But most of the time we're just in such a routine of living, and she's a verbal Alzheimer's patient, and I know there's some that are not verbal. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's helpful for sure. Even though I wish that when they are verbal, they can help explain their symptoms or how they're feeling, because that would be so much more beneficial to me. Yeah. Like when she just goes, I feel weird. I'm like, well, tell me, I don't know. And she really doesn't know how to explain it. Mm-hmm. But I think I told you yesterday she was in a real reflective mood. She couldn't remember her sister, what her sister looked like. Yeah. And then she said, I don't remember the last time I saw her. She knew at this point she had passed, but it bothered her. I could tell it really bothered her. And so I said, well, I can help you out with some of those details. Okay, thank you, will you? And so I told her when the last time she saw her sister and how her sister died. So, those, I would say that it was interesting that yesterday I would consider that a shift. Because normally when she talks about her sister, she brings up all the same things that she loved about her. She was so creative. She knew how to sew. She knew how to cook. She loved the Lord. And then yesterday it was just like, she goes, I just don't remember anything about her. So that was probably a shift that kind of made me go, but it didn't scare me. Yeah. Routine is critical for me too. So as I set routine, and I create order of things and stay on top of those things, then it helps me prepare for a major shift. Yeah. Because I know with that's going to come an emotional response, but also physical. She's not. So a couple things that we're doing different that I've added to my own routine and hers is she's needed to wear more of a thicker pad at night because she's just not quite getting to the bathroom in time. She's a hard sleeper, so she's having bathroom accidents. That's new. Okay, well, we'll adjust to that. That's going well so far. I'm having to really focus on hygiene with hand
So
washing.
you're starting to see little bitty changes.
Little bitty
Starting to
changes
see little bitty changes.
where I have to hover just a little bit more.
Well, yeah.
She is not appreciated in the last month, but I always accuse the doctor that the doctor said to do this, is hand washing more like a surgeon. And she gets aggravated with, I know how to wash my hands, but I always catch her just putting water and going like this, and I'm like, that ain't cutting it. So I said, Mother, I'm doing it too because of COVID and all these viruses. We have to wash all around our hands. And then,
Yeah.
So that's aggravating her because she feels stupid. But I'm trying to say, well, but the doctor said right now we need to add this to the way we wash our hands. So
Yeah.
I'm having to pay attention a little more to hygiene. So I know I need to hover just a little bit more and make sure that she doesn't stop brushing her teeth because she's always been obsessive with brushing her teeth. But there was a period of time where my father just stopped. You had to go in there. So I need to be paying attention to things like that.
So there's little changes getting started.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know when we were getting ready to take the picture,
Yeah.
she told you, I know what I'm doing. But she didn't know how to do it.
Mm-mm.
You said, well, let me show you a little bit. And she was like, okay, fine, show me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she still wants to. And I like it when she's like that because to me she's alert.
And then she was really happy when she took the pictures. Oh, that came out great.
Oh, yeah. And it's the first time really that she listened to that one instruction about not holding down on the iPhone. 'Cause she usually takes about 20. She'll go, you can hear them too, like, but she's just touched it.
Yeah.
So she wants to be needed and useful.
Yes.
And when she's clapping back like that in a fun way, that's her. And so that always makes me feel good.
Yeah, because that's one thing I noticed with my mother-in-law. I had to always remember she had a life. She cooked, she cleaned, she knew how to do things, and so I had to watch that because a lot of times I would, well, let me do it. And she would be like, I know how to do it. Then I thought, okay, I probably just embarrassed her or made her very uncomfortable. So I know not to do that. It's kind of like you're on 24/7 because you constantly got to watch them because what they do is going to let you know what you need to do and what step you're going to. And the not remembering thing, all the time that she's been remembering anyway, but now she almost quite don't remember. That's how I knew too with my mother-in-law. She was going through the change, but the best thing for us is we can pray. And we can tell the Lord, which he already knows, but we can tell him, Lord, this happened today and this is going on, and Lord, get me ready and show me what to do and how to do things. And that's the good thing with our relationship because we pray a lot and the Lord just shows us what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much out of our control.
Right.
And there's the emotional component that you can't ignore. The fact that I'm in a prolonged grieving state because of, even though she is not physically passed, she's mentally and emotionally changing, so there's that. So I'm very hypersensitive to that going on. I'm less frustrated with myself when I'm impatient, because at night she gets real talkative at night. And because she's not watching TV or anything like that, she's not watching TV, she's playing her solitaire. But she'll look up and she wants to know all the details about what now who did he kill? Now what's happening? Why is there an and I'm like, I don't know, Mama. And I do. But I will fill her in. I'll tell her for the millionth time that he killed 4 people. And so most of the time I turn the TV off because she's playing solitaire and maybe I'm playing solitaire or watching one of my biblical scholar teachers going through something. So that's better having on. And she's not going to get so wrapped up in all those details. She's just going to listen. But you give her the visual and like, Theba, what happened? Where's those floodwaters? And then the snowstorm really freaked her out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look at that. And then the news makes her sad. All the immigrants coming over with the babies. So I have to turn that off. Because she's like, what are they going to do? Look, they have a baby.
Yeah.
So,
you got to really be protective over them. You got to watch them. Yeah. Because everything that we do, they may do it but don't process it like we do.
That's exactly right.
So you really have to, like, be a mother with her baby. You got to guard them. Mm-hmm. Because I remember my mother-in-law used to look at TV, and she would say, oh, my God. And I would look at her like, okay, let's turn the channel. Click. And I'd turn the channel, and she'd be like, what happened? I was like, man, I don't know. Looked like something else came on,
Yeah, you do, because she'll go like, well, he just shot him.
Yeah.
And she's shocked. She cannot separate the fact that it's a TV show.
No.
And so that's where I am her mind.
You have to learn how to switch.
I'm her body.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes her heart. I know I'm not God in her life. God is in her life. And so I'm responsible to her, not for her. Mm-hmm. He's responsible for her. So I need to stay in touch with him.
At all times.
To care for her the best. So far, what I'd learned in my classes, your goal is to keep them safe and comfortable. Mm-hmm. I've done that and more. Meaning that, yes, in my panicked anxiety state, that was the most important thing. Comfort and safety. Comfort and safety.
Yeah.
Then it was finding ways for her to engage in being alive. I told you recently we just started playing gin. Now, where I know she can't be helpful and is not going to be helpful is she can't count up the cards. But she remembers how to play gin. So that was fun to remember that. And so we did that during Christmas. And
well,
then
you're going to... one thing y'all did, when I first came, she was doing puzzles.
Yeah, she's lost interest.
Just finding some things to do. So she's lost interest in the puzzle, huh?
I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was eyesight. She's got good eyes, but we'd been doing puzzles for years. But I couldn't get her to sit down more than 10 minutes before she was over it. And it could just be confidence. She just felt like she couldn't connect them. Now, I would let her connect things wrong all the time. And when she'd get up to go TT, I'd fix them. So I never brought to her attention when things were not really jamming out.
Yeah.
And so that's fine. And I'm like, okay, well, because she still loves playing solitaire on the computer. And she might get a little confused about normal stuff, but that's a way that when she has an anxious mind, I'll see her grab the computer and play solitaire. And sometimes I'm over there playing solitaire as she is. So as you well know, and I have shared, we do not watch TV or hang out in the den anymore. The den is just too big.
Yeah.
And we're too separate. So what we do is we call it our day bed area. We go into my room where the cats can get on the bed with us. She's got her little side table. I got mine, so she can have her computer, and I've got my computer. She can see me. She touches me all the time, and that's really important to her. She's constantly doing this. Sometimes fun, but just, she likes to use her little nails, or so even though it might irritate me sometimes because I'm focused, and all of a sudden she's like touching me or doing something, I have to be really patient because that touch is critical. Mm-hmm. So, I have this retractable bed, and we make it a big long couch. Her blood flow is better in that position than it is sitting up, and I think that was a big effect on that computer. On the puzzle. She would start to feel dizzier because she was sitting up. She has really low blood pressure.
Okay.
Because there would be times just at the puzzle she'd go, whew, I'm dizzy. So I just had struggled. I'd got a better light for it. There'd be things like that. So blood flow better when she's in the retractable bed. The cats, being able to cuddle with her, she absolutely loves
She loves
that.
them cats.
Loves looking out that window in the front and seeing all the birds. And not that we didn't have a big, beautiful window right here in this den, but if I was over there in this chair or if I was on the couch, it just wasn't in her peripheral, because people don't understand, for dementia patients, I could be right beside her, but she may not, she can sense me now because she can see my feet, but she really literally has to turn to make sure that I'm there, because their focus becomes very narrow. That's why you don't sneak up on them, you don't touch them from behind, and you try to have. It's very difficult because I can't really have face-to-face conversation with her because we're laying there in bed together. And she calls me, she goes, "You mumble a lot. I don't understand anything you're saying." Well, now, what did you just say? And she's right. I just kind of talk under my breath sometimes, and I'm not as articulate, and I need to be louder. But if I need her to pay attention to something, I need to look right at her, face her, and make eye-to-eye contact.
Yeah, but that closeness is very important.
Yeah, physical closeness
is very important.
I didn't realize how until we actually made that move into the
bedroom. But it is an adjustment for you, though, especially for me, when I so used to just being by myself. Okay, you go to your room.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to my room. But then you have to make that adjustment now because they want to always feel that you're there.
Right.
So now you and her are together. Me and my mother-in-law, I would sit on the couch, and then here she come. I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, here she comes. She's gonna sit down by me. Okay, now I got to stay here."
Yeah. Now she still goes to her room to sleep, and so far all that routine. But I can sense a little. The other night she goes, "My room is so far away from you. I feel scared." And I'll say, "Mama, you know you're not scared. And I'm right down here if you need me." Okay. Yeah. I'm confident that there will be some time this year that she will get to a place where she'll be too afraid to sleep in her room. Only because the hinting of that is coming, because she'll go, "I'm so far down there. Maybe I'll move into this other room right beside you." And I'm like, "But Mama, you won't have your own bathroom." "Yeah, you're right." So right now I can kind of talk her out of that thinking, but there'll be a time when that's...
But you can see the changes coming with that.
And maybe it's me going in there. She has a much bigger bed, and just laying with her until because that woman can sleep, ma'am. And I'm the one listening to all the storms and every branch that might hit the roof, but she's out.
She'll go to sleep.
So I could go in there and start off in there and go to sleep with her and then sneak out. And that might be how we do it at the very beginning. I'm just anticipating those type of things, and I'm okay with that. And will be, but I'm grateful right now that she wakes up in the morning very excited and happy, and
that's good.
Coffee and the cats, and then we get in the bed and watch the news or whatever. And right now we're watching The Vine. I try not to watch the other news because it's too depressing.
Yeah.
So, and she sees Adam and Ashley, and she goes, "You worked with them, didn't you?" So she remembers them on the Vine, so that's fun.
But doesn't it amaze you sometimes, some of the things they can remember, and you'd be like, "I didn't think she'd remember that."
Yeah, it is so random.
Yeah, and it just blows your mind, and you'd be like, my mother-in-law, she had forgotten a lot of things. But boy, if you had started a gospel song, she'd sing that gospel song. But then you ask her, "Well, Mom, where did you used to live at? Where were you living at before you moved here?" She couldn't remember.
Yeah.
But then I'd say, she was very spiritual. And then I would say, like, "Well, now, what time did you go to Sunday school?" "Oh, we had to be there at 8 o'clock.
Right.
Opened up at 7:30. So I thank God for that, for her spiritualness, because it kept me spiritual and praying. It lets me know, now, if I stay spiritual, then when she starts going to the left, I used to call it going to the left. When she started going to the left, if I say something spiritual, she'd be back on it. What you do?
Oh, it's fine.
So I said that to say this, for for those of us that pray and believe in the Lord, and it's very crucial that you continue that.
Yeah, and we'll end with this, with that subject, because our time is coming to an end, but it's the most beautiful part for us. So we've always prayed together as mother and daughter, and prayed openly. So when I was able to settle down and have a routine, I prayed every morning for us. We prayed aloud. She loves thanking God for the house. And so after a while, because you have to let them go at their own pace, I would ask her if she wanted to pray. She'd go, no. She'd be real shy and introvert. No, that's okay. Because she was worried about if she could or what to say. So for a couple months, I would open us up in prayer. And now we pray throughout the day. And we'll go on a walk, we'll pray. We work the puzzles, we would pray about something. So that routine would be set. And then after a while, I'd go, oh, Mama, why don't you just kick us off? I didn't ask if she wanted to.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you kick us off this morning? And then she would do it. So now we kind of rotate a little bit. Or maybe I'll start and then she'll pray, or she'll start. Sometimes when she starts the prayer, it's so perfect. I'm like, thank you, Mama. I mean, I can't add anything. And sure, she repeats herself, but she focuses on the very simple and beautiful. She'll thank him for the birds.
She does.
She thanks him for that we're here together. Thanks
Yes, she
for the
does.
critters and all this stuff. So, and again, on our walks, we'll just start praying for family members or whatever. So that's a beautiful aspect. And that is a routine that we don't miss every morning. And then again, throughout the day, because we don't have the TV on or something, or maybe I've just learned some incredible revelation in God's Word, I'll get real excited. And she knows it's coming. And I go, oh, that's right, Mama. Isn't that right, what he said about God or Jesus? And so I'll stop and thank God for that revelation, and she'll chime in. So that's not going to change. If she gets nonverbal, I'll just continue that.
Good.
I always tell people she may forget a lot of people or relationships, but she has not forgotten Jesus.
Yes.
And that solidifies to me his real presence, divine presence.
Yeah.
You know, that even, and you hear that a lot about a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia patients, and you just mentioned your mother-in-law in the gospel. You know, that's who you are. If you've accepted Christ, it is in you. You are sealed in Christ, and it doesn't matter how confused or uncertain or you don't know where you are, that relationship is there.
Yes.
Well, I sure have enjoyed our time. I wish we could keep on going and going and going, but I've enjoyed connecting with you, kind of this year in review with you. I love you dearly, and look forward to, we talked about this at lunch, folks, but she knows how to play spades, and Mom and I used to play, but I couldn't remember how to play spades, so Jackie, before she leaves, is going to take us through a round of spades, because Mom loves spades, and I like it too because it's more competitive. Right now we're playing gin, and it's kind of boring. Yeah. But anyway, please, everyone out there who is a caregiver or about to become a caregiver, there are resources, there are tools that will help empower you, so you won't feel as helpless. There's also a 24/7 hotline for Alzheimer's Association and Alzheimer's Arkansas. If you get into a panic situation or just need to connect with somebody on how to move forward in a behavior or anything like that, they will be there for you. Get into a support group if you can. Yeah. There are also classes that you can take to learn more about the disease so you don't feel as hopeless. And so I just want to thank you again for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I just thank the Lord for you because you're doing good. Just keep it up.
All right, thank you. You're making me blush.